Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something truly game-changing. We're unpacking Derrace Moore's framework for breaking out of self-destruction and stepping into what he calls presidential mindedness. It is a fascinating look at how our minds are wired, so let's just jump right in.
Okay, think about this powerful idea for a second. Modern self-development has kind of accidentally created millions of us who are emotionally dependent on motivation, but we totally lack the discipline to actually change our lives. Derrace Moore figured this out through his own battle with addiction. He realized, we can get addicted to literally anything that temporarily shifts our mood. And yeah, that includes self-help. We binge podcasts, we save inspirational quotes to get that quick high, but we aren't building the actual structures for change. We're consuming, but we're not transforming.
So, to tackle this, we're going to follow a really clear roadmap today. We'll start by looking at the trauma Olympics, then talk about escaping survival mentality, breaking down the ultimate system, rebuilding with mental wealth, and finally, crowning the culture. Let's kick things off with part 1, the trauma Olympics, where pain becomes presentation.
We're living in a time where people are unconsciously competing in these trauma Olympics. Think about it. Brokenness is practically a brand now, a type of social currency. We use all the right buzzwords, triggers, boundaries, healing journeys. But so often, that pain just becomes a performance. People get so wrapped up in being the wounded one that actually healing feels like giving up their identity. It turns into a contest of whose pain is worse instead of asking, how do I grow? But here's the reality check. Pain was supposed to be information to help us rebuild. It was never meant to be a house we live in.
It's exactly like an iceberg. We spend years, sometimes our whole lives, trying to fix the visible 20% of our chaos. The finances, the bad relationships, our environment. But we completely ignore the massive 80% hiding right beneath the surface. That hidden 80%? That's mental poverty. That's undisciplined automatic reactions. You absolutely cannot transform just by changing your scenery. You have to completely rebuild your internal operating system.
Which leads us perfectly into part 2, escaping the illusion of the survival mentality.
Derrace draws on his own really intense personal history here, battling addiction, facing homelessness after Hurricane Katrina, and doing time. And his story exposes a really harsh truth. Society tells us that talent will save us. Well, spoiler alert, it doesn't. Capability without discipline is incredibly dangerous. You can be super smart, holding it all together on the outside, while completely spinning out of control on the inside. For Moore, the massive wake-up call came from a judge in discipline court who simply asked him, "What are you doing to get home?" That question is a mirror. It forces you to realize that wanting freedom and actually behaving in a way that leads to freedom are two entirely different things. When you break it down, surviving is really just playing reactive defense, but disguising it as progress. It's all about immediate relief. It's emotionally urgent. You're constantly hustling, putting out fires, and mistaking all that frantic movement for actual forward momentum. Real leadership, or presidential mindedness, is the exact opposite. It's about long-term alignment, it demands emotional discipline, and relies on intentional systems rather than just reacting to whatever crisis pops up today. Moving on to part 3, the ultimate system, from thoughts all the way to character. To break out of this psychological loop, we've got to dig up the root cause. Moore argues that your destiny isn't just some accident, it is constructed. There is an invisible blueprint quietly authoring every single outcome in your life, whether you see it or not. If you want different results, you can't just hack away at the branches of your behavior. You have to pull up the roots.
And here is how that root system actually grows. Thoughts are the invisible parents of our reality. They're where identity is born. Those thoughts naturally become the words we speak, which structure our thinking. Then, those words translate into the actions we take, making the invisible visible. Do those actions enough times and bam, they're habits. And eventually, those automatic habits harden into the very character we present to the world. If you're constantly feeding your mind chaos and survival, that chain reaction is going to build a chaotic character.
We naturally get stuck in this repetitive loop. You can probably spot this in your own life right now. Some reason, usually a pressure or a trigger, sparks a deeply conditioned response. And that response, it produces the exact same destructive result, time and time again. The cycle just keeps spinning. Our environments program our behavior, and if we don't actively intervene, that conditioning quietly just becomes our destiny.
So what's the way out? The crucial X factor here is awareness. It's that intentional interruption right between the reason and the response. Awareness is what forces you to hit pause, investigate those root thoughts, and hold a mirror right up to your own programming so you can actively choose a different response. Motivation fades, right? We know that. But awareness? Awareness actually transforms you because it completely shuts down that emotional autopilot.
This brings us to part 4, rebuilding the mind with mental wealth.
Okay, so once you interrupt that old conditioning, you can't just stop there. You have to rebuild the mind before you can try to lead the life. Derrace calls this new operating system a luxury brand of common sense. It's this brilliant intersection where emotional competence meets economic consciousness. It's a framework that teaches us how to organize our internal architecture. That way, we aren't just reacting to the pressures of life, we're strategically designing it. It's all about leading yourself internally before you even attempt to lead your life externally.
And how exactly do we build this mental wealth? It's simple. Practice. Repetition and intensity shape identity. Thanks to neuroplasticity, your brain is not permanently fixed. It adapts through repeated exposure. So if you intentionally practice mental wealth, just one thought, one word, one habit at a time, it actually compounds, just like financial interest. You are literally rewiring your brain for success simply by refusing to lower your standards when things get tough.
Finally, part 5, crowning the culture and scaling that impact.
Because true self-help shouldn't end with just you. Your healing has to eventually help someone else heal. It needs to scale outward and impact the community. This hits especially close to home for a city like New Orleans, which Moore highlights. You see, environments quietly normalize either brilliance or survival. There are whole communities bursting with raw, untapped genius. They aren't lacking talent or culture or creativity, not at all. What they're missing are the structured bridges. They need pathways that connect all that raw potential over to wisdom and opportunity. Because without a bridge, all that amazing potential just falls into the void.
But when we transform individual psychological slavery into mental wealth, we can start building those bridges. This is the vision behind things like the NOLA Solutions Summit. It's about creating an interconnected ecosystem where mentors, businesses, the community, and the youth are all working together to spark a massive cultural reset. The goal is to make mental wealth just as important and just as accessible as financial wealth across the entire city.
When leaders step up and actually provide access, and the youth get the tools to unlock their natural gifts, the whole energy in the room shifts. For the leaders, the focus becomes providing that access. For the youth, it's all about unlocking those gifts. And for the city as a whole, the conversation shifts from just managing an endless list of problems to the people themselves becoming the solution. We move out of mere conversation and into powerful, actual collaboration. So I want to leave you with a mirror to hold up to your own life today based on everything we've just unpacked. What system is currently authoring your life? Are you consciously and intentionally building your mental wealth, or is a survival mentality still quietly holding the pen? Think about it. It's a huge question to ask yourself. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep building that mental wealth.